Initially marketed as the Battle of Los Angeles, then released as Battle Los Angeles due to some legal quarreling over another movie with the same title in 2011, it is an essential war on terror movie marinated in the assumptions of fourth-generation war that dominated military theory of the time and seeped out into popular culture through news media and entertainment. The film's premise is familiar. Aliens invade, and it's up to our square-jawed, gun-toting hero to save the world. But this one breaks from the mold in a few interesting ways. First, it never gives us the big picture. Usually these alien invasion films will have a big exposition scene where national leaders discuss what they know, and in the process give us the framework of the story. The Joint Chiefs tell the president how overmatched we are and argue about using nuclear weapons on flying saucers hovering over American cities, that sort of thing. Not this time. We're dropped in with a squad of Marines that don't know what the hell is going on. Battle Los Angeles gives us a sergeant's view. And the mission briefing was kinda trash. Who are we fighting? I don't know. Aliens, I guess. What do they want? I don't know. They're aliens. The only indicator the movie gives us for the alien invaders' motivation is this.
Obviously, they are here for our resources. When you invade a place for its resources, you wipe out the indigenous population. Those are the rules of any colonization.
But it's CNN, so we know that's bullshit. And what we end up with is a war movie that perfectly fits its time. War movies are almost always about the most recent war, even when the film is set in a past conflict or a future setting. It's part of how our culture processes it. Just as Aliens was a Vietnam movie, Battle Los Angeles is a GWoT movie. We have an attack on American cities, but we're not really told why. They want our water, they hate our freedoms, something like that. At first, the Marines are cast in the then familiar counterinsurgency role.
They're ground force enemy only. They have no aircraft, so the Air Force will tear them a new asshole, and we will rule the air.
But as the film unfolds, the tables are turned, and these Marines become the insurgent force, fighting against an enemy with air superiority and superior firepower. Through them, we take on the perspective of local forces fighting off invaders. Invaders that, as near as we can tell, just came to smack us around a bit. It flips the asymmetrical war model on us. The early 21st century had the United States military on the offensive, fighting against a technologically inferior opponent on their turf. In Battle Los Angeles, we're the backward screwheads being invaded by a technologically superior force. And like the Afghan and Iraqi insurgents, it's the Americans that have to turn their weaknesses into strengths against this opponent. For example, they instantly detect and home in on radio emissions, making it impossible for US forces to effectively communicate beyond a squad level without drawing intense fire. But our Marines turn it around by using their radios to lure the invaders into an ambush. These invaders make extensive use of drones controlled through a centralized communications hub. This is a strength in that it allows for instant coordination of their forces throughout the city, but centralization is also a weakness. Just as insurgent forces in Iraq and Afghanistan attacked the weak points of the American military, for example, hitting supply convoys with IEDs, in Battle Los Angeles, our squad of Marines attempt to destroy the communications hub controlling the alien drones, and in so doing, leverage their small numbers into a much greater impact than they could have had in straight combat. Forces that are highly dependent on their technology find themselves at a severe disadvantage when it's taken away from them. Even the end of the film captures some essence of the war on terror. Our heroic Marines, with some soldiers and an Air Force tech sergeant, no love for the Navy in this one, manage to achieve their objective and escape impending death. But upon returning from the fighting, they immediately start loading magazines and grabbing fresh gear. The final shot has them flying back into the seemingly endless battle, their last victory almost forgotten, just a ripple in an ocean of perpetual conflict. The GWoT era spawned a lot of reassessment of military doctrines and piles of papers and books and assessments written by academics and military officers alike. One of the most broadly acclaimed at the time was The Utility of Force, written by General Rupert Smith of the British Army, which is a good source for anyone wanting to get a really good grasp on the core concepts in historical context without getting completely lost out in the weeds. The book begins with this passage: "War no longer exists. Confrontation, conflict, and combat undoubtedly exist all around the world, most notably, but not only, in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the Palestinian territories. And states still have armed forces, which they use as a symbol of power. Nonetheless, war as cognitively known to most non-combatants, war as a battle in a field between men and machinery, war as a massive deciding event in a dispute in international affairs, such war no longer exists. Originally published in the aughts, it reflects its time. The basic thesis that war between big industrial states is over and we've entered the era of peacekeeping and asymmetrical conflict is what we see in Battle Los Angeles. An invading force of infantry and air support faces off against local forces equipped with small arms. No city-destroying nuclear strikes or orbital bombardment, no mass landing of heavy armor. It's the Afghanistan model dropped onto LA, and it fit perfectly with the time. It looks different today. Tanks are hot items again, factories can't turn out artillery shells fast enough, and war with Russia and or China is being treated as a serious possibility. Industrial war is making a comeback, or rather, it never really left. Battle Los Angeles is an artifact of a point in recent history that has since proved to not be quite as transformational as was thought at the time. It's also a pretty decent action movie, and I may be overthinking it. This was the first one by viewer request. There's a few more of those in the pipeline that you'll be seeing over the next few months.